What's up, y'all? It's your host, Will, coming back for a new episode of Field Note Fridays powered by Bowtech. On today's episode, we are going to learn how to sharpen our knives a little bit better. So who are we going to get on for that? Well, we got Mr. Josh Warren coming on from WorkSharp to come on over here and give us some tips, tactics on how to get a better edge on our knives. So that way, we're not going to have to struggle when we're out in the field or when we're trying to cut up meat, skin an animal, whatever you're trying to do, learn how to get a little bit better and sharper edge. And so we got Josh on here to talk about that. We might go down a couple rabbit holes, but who knows? It's podcasting. It is what it is. So nonetheless, I'm going to quit rambling and we're going to get to it with Josh. So we hope you enjoy, y'all. All right, man. Well, let's get this thing rolling. Josh, first and foremost, want to welcome you to HuntStand podcast for Field Note Friday. So thanks for hopping on with me today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Super excited to be a part of this.
Absolutely, man. We're excited to have you on. So one of the things I like to do to get each of these podcasts started is I like for the guest to kind of let the listener know who they are. You know, give us that 30-foot tree stand view of who you are, where you've been, and how you've gotten to where you are.
Yeah, well, sure. Well, I guess I'm here because I work with WorkSharp. We're a small company based in Southern Oregon. We make knife and tool sharpeners, mostly for hunters and sportsmen, but you know, the application for a knife sharpener is pretty broad. Anything from kitchen knives to what you find in like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, you know, guys sharpening knives who are contractors or DIY working on the job. Outside of that, in for WorkSharp, I do a lot of the marketing, wear a handful of different hats, everything from working on our social media and our YouTube series to some of the advertising and even a little bit in the sales side of things when it comes to e-commerce. So touch a little bit of everything there. But outside of WorkSharp, you know, I'm not an entirely seasoned sportsman, but grew up hunting and fishing mostly whitetail deer up in northeast Washington State.
Sweet.
Hunting some woodsy whitetails up there, which can be a lot of fun. Mostly rifle hunting, but you know, bring in a lot of deer through rattling or calling, and shot a good handful of deer at you know, 30 to 60 yards, which is, you know, almost bow range really, but
heck yeah,
a lot of fun. You know, a little turkey hunting here and there, and trout fishing, salmon, steelhead fishing. Love doing that stuff. So in the Northwest, we've got just great opportunities from up on the Columbia, or you know, I'm fly fishing down here on the Rogue River, which is, I think it's seen, you know, better days for fishing, but this year's shaping up pretty good and just beautiful to be out here.
Sweet, man. So big fly fisherman, huh?
Oh, I would say I'm a learning fly fisherman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun, and there's always nuance to it, and you know, different styles and things you can try. But yeah, you know, I'd catch more fish on a, you know, bait or, you know, more traditional, but it's a fun way to be out there. I like it.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat you are. I'd say you're definitely way ahead of where I am, but I've done a little bit of fly fishing, dabbled with it, you know, vacations in Colorado. It's something I've always wanted to really dive into, but I've just never had the time. I'm sure I could make the time, but just haven't gotten into it. So, well, man, for the sake of this podcast, Field Note Fridays, you know, kind of like we were talking before, that we'd love for these podcasts that they're really, really informational, super direct to the point for the listeners. And with you being from WorkSharp, you know, kind of talk to us a little bit about WorkSharp, and then I want to dive into some knife sharpening tips that you like to do and some that y'all know yourselves. So kind of tell us about WorkSharp a little bit, and kind of the direction and place that WorkSharp is looking to go.
Yeah, I'll start with the company and who we are a little bit. I said we're in Southern Oregon, about 100 people, everywhere from our production and assembly, where we're bringing in parts and building sharpeners, to the, you know, the engineering side, the accounting, sales, marketing, all that. It's about 100 people, and we're a fourth generation family owned business. So our CEO is the owner and has inherited it from his dad, or bought it from his dad, and it's been a great company to be a part of that really supports the people that work there and their passions, which happen to be a lot of outdoorsmen and women as well. We make knife sharpeners, and we also make some drill bit sharpeners under the brand Drill Doctor. For the, you know, guys out there who are 50 plus may have heard of that. It kind of had its heyday, like 15 or 20 years ago, and ran the gamut with like a gifting season. It was like, the Instapot, but the Drill Doctor like 15 years ago. And so it kind of ran its course there, but we still sell a few of them, and they're great tools for sharpening drill bits. But knife sharpeners, everything from, field sharpeners that you would use literally, when you're at the point of harvest, to, sharpeners for the kitchen, like a honing rod or something to touch up your chef's knife or work in the shop. And a lot of the technology that we've used is into our abrasives, which is really the core. That's where the rubber meets the road, or the knife steel meets the diamond, if you will. Like that's kind of the core place where it shows up. But a lot of that for us in the start was in flexible abrasives, using belts, flexible abrasive belts, just like knife manufacturers use, whether it's a custom knife maker or a big manufacturer. They're using these large grinders with belts. And so we scaled that technology down to something that you can use in your home and create a factory sharp or sharper edge on your knife, doing it yourself, and relatively easy, and take some of the mystery out of it.
Sweet, man. Sounds like a really great place to work for too, by the way.
Yeah, it's been, they've been great. The time I've been there, it's fun. I've been there for about 4 years now. And, there was just a little, in our monthly newsletter, we kind of highlight, people whose their work anniversary is coming up. And I was at the bottom of the list for the month of June when I was at 4 years. I think there was one person below me who'd been there for 3 years, but people have been there for 20 years. And there's a ton of people who've been there for 8 or 10 years. And so it's fun to be a part of a team that's been there a while and knows the business really well.
Heck yeah, man. Can't complain about that at all one bit. So what I want to dive into on this podcast is I really want to kind of find out from you what your preferred method and way is to use a work sharp product and sharpen a knife, and then kind of give us some tips on how you get that super sharp edge. So kind of tell us that, man.
Yeah. Well, I assume I'm talking to a few sportsmen and women here, so I'll kind of approach it from that angle. And there's a couple of ways to go about it. One is it's important to maintain some consistency. So if you're sharpening at home, getting ready for a hunt, a fishing trip, whatever it is, understand the angle that you're sharpening your knife to.
Yeah.
All of our products, this is mostly a work sharp thing. We've put an angle guide on almost every sharpener we sell. I think that's a huge component of being successful with sharpening, is maintaining that angle. So we help you out with an angle guide, but choose an angle that complements the angle that you would resharpen at in the field. That's a big tip that I'll say. Typically a sporting knife, a hunting knife, is going to be something around 20 or 25 degrees. Sometimes you get into some of these premium knives, premium steels. They do a good job of holding a thinner angle. You would say more slicey, 17 degrees is going to be more slicey than 25. But the potential drawback is that they dull quicker. So when you get to a premium steel, you can go a little finer, but I would say rule of thumb, sharpen your knife, a hunting knife, at about 20 degrees.
Okay.
And then when you take that into the field, use a sharpener that you can touch up that angle at the same 20 degrees. And that pairs really well with our field sharpener, which happens to have 20-degree guides. It's a great sportsman's tool. The key for getting a really sharp knife, I think, comes down to a couple of things. One is the consistency of not just holding the same angle, but making sure you're sharpening each side the same amount. So, if you're sharpening on a powered sharpener, you're going to do 2 passes on one side, then do that same 2 passes on the other side. What you're looking for in your initial sharpening is to raise a burr. Some people call this a feather or a fine wire.
Okay.
And it develops on the opposite side of the edge that you just sharpened. So say you make 2 passes through a powered sharpener with a coarse belt. Then you're going to feel the opposite side, push your finger away from the cutting edge, and you'll feel it get hung up on this small, fine wire. That indicates that you've resharpened or removed enough material to get to a sharp cutting edge. And you're not just going to be, polishing the sides. You've actually reestablished, a new apex of the edge.
Okay.
So then you repeat that same amount of strokes on the other side, and then you can progress down to finer grits, either finer belts, or if you're working on a stone, you can move to a finer diamond or ceramic.
Gotcha.
Typically, you're going to find that a knife that's still reasonably sharp, it has an edge, but it's not shaving hair off your arm or anything like that, is only going to take 2 or 3 passes on a coarse belt, or maybe 6 to 8 passes on a coarse diamond. And then you can progress down, and as soon as you've done that past the first stage, then I recommend alternating strokes from one side to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to make sure you maintain that even edge as you work down through that grit. And you're refining that edge. You're removing some of that burr and the teeth that are caused from the bigger abrasive particles.
Yeah.
And you're smoothing it out, so you end up with a really razor sharp knife.
Ah, okay. So, man, that's some good stuff right there. I mean, I like that. So, from your perspective, I want to know 2 things. Obviously, there's going to be a different sharpener of y'all's that you're going to have at the house than, let's say, if you're going to be out in the turkey woods with no power.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of tell me, what is your favorite sharpener to have at home and why? And then what's your favorite sharpener to have out in the woods in your pack and why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So at the house or in the shop, I love using the Ken Onion edition, which is it's a powered sharpener, benchtop, and the power is operated by like a trigger, like a drill would be, but it drives a triangle-shaped belt that is used to sharpen the knife. So you can actually change out the belt it has 5 different belts, from a extra coarse to a extra fine, super fine 6,000 grit.
Okay.
That will put everything from sharpening a knife that's totally beat up to your shaven hair. It's super sharp.
Yeah.
It has, surrounding the triangle shaped belt, there's a guide that sits over it. So on one side of the triangle, there's a guide that sharpens one side of the knife, and then you switch to the other side and use the other guide, and it sharpens the other. Those guides are holding your knife at the right angle relative to the belt. So really takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Helps you put a sharp edge on your knife, and very quickly. So the days of old where you're sharpening on a stone for 20 minutes per knife are gone.
Yeah.
I recommend, for someone who's just getting into this, practice on it's a power tool, so practice on a knife that means a little less to you, or pick something up at Goodwill for $20 or like $2, I think is what they go for. But it's a great tool to sharpen quickly. When you transition into the field, this is kind of what I was getting at earlier, is, pick a sharpener that matches the angle that you're sharpening at home. And the Ken Onion actually has an adjustable angle, so you can sharpen anywhere between 15 and 30 degrees, which covers basically any knife that you need.
Okay.
When you go to the field, there's 2 that I like. One that kind of rises above. It's called the Guided Field Sharpener, and it's just a no-brainer of a tool to have in your pack or in your kit at some level. It's got 2 diamond abrasives, a coarse and a fine. It's got a ceramic rod that's built in on one side and a leather strop on the last side. So it's, every side of this tool is covered with some abrasive, which makes it really effective. And every side, or every abrasive, has an angle guide. So you're holding your knife at the proper angle as you work it across these stones or surfaces. It's a great tool. You can reprofile a knife if you need to. It takes a little bit more time. It's a manual sharpener, obviously, using diamond abrasive, but you can resharpen a knife that's totally beat. And it's also just great to touch up a knife that's, cut through some hair or maybe dropped in the dirt or whatever it might be, just to give it a fresh edge.
Now, you talked about the ceramic rod and the leather strap that's on these. I don't think a lot of people know necessarily what the ceramic and leather is there for. I know obviously they're familiar with the other stone, the grindstone, or the abrasive, if you will, to that. But kind of dive into that ceramic and leather part for us real quick.
Yeah. So like you're saying, the diamond stone's removing material. If you've got a really dull knife, then it'll resharpen it. But when you move into ceramic, it's really what we call honing, which is a common term. But what honing actually does is it's straightening the edge of the blade. So as picture a thin edge, a razor blade is easy to picture. If you were to put a lot of force on that edge is probably going to bend to one side slightly. It's not truly straight anymore.
Yeah.
And over time, and with more pressure, that bend will break off. It'll fold over and break off. This is happening at almost a microscopic level, so you can't really see it. But this is the very fine, very sharp edge that we're actually cutting with. So what that ceramic is doing is, by making light passes on each side, you're actually standing that edge back up, making it true again, so that it lasts longer and doesn't, continue to fold over and then break off. And once it is broken off, that's indeed leaving you a dull spot. Okay. And you have to go back and resharpen. So you can actually save yourself some time and lengthen the life of your knife by honing over time, because it saves you from going back and resharpening.
Gotcha.
Sharpening is real similar. And just kind of puts that extra polish on it, does the same thing at a even finer level. If you guys are in the field and working on an animal, do not underestimate the time savings that it will, the time that it will save you to just stop quickly, touch up the knife on ceramic and leather, and get back to work. 20 seconds of resharpening is going to save you a couple minutes and a whole lot of headache if you're working through especially large game.
Yeah, absolutely. So what comes first? You obviously you've got your stones that come first, but then ceramic then leather, or leather then ceramic?
Ceramic and then leather. Finish on the leather strop.
Sweet. Love it, man. Well, I know we're running out of time here, but kind of tell the listeners real quick, if there's any final parting tips, tactics for sharpening that knife that you haven't maybe mentioned yet, kind of give them in on some secrets real quick, and we'll be done there.
Yeah, I think the last, this a little either misconception or a secret here. I said the word consistency in the beginning, and one of the things that helps with consistency is to slow down your pace some. Sometimes you hand somebody a knife, or we all see like this Gordon Ramsay on TV who's flinging his knife sharpener
or
around and super fast sharpening. That's not yielding consistency, especially if you're not practiced. I can't speak for Gordon Ramsay and his effectiveness sharpening, but slow it down. Consider it like 1 second of abrasive per second or per inch of blade. So if you got a 3-inch knife, you're going to spend 3 seconds per side. It's not a long time. You're not a turtle just slowly going across, but you are taking some time and being intentional about it. Okay. And then stop when the tip of your knife is still on the abrasive. That goes for like a belt sharpener. That goes for a diamond sharpener. Even for the leather. If you're dragging your tip off of the edge, potentially you're slightly rounding that tip every time you're pressing it over the edge of the abrasive.
Gotcha. So I kind of want to clarify real quick. When you said 3 seconds, like if it's a 3-inch blade, and you're talking 3 seconds per side, are you talking like as you're making that stroke on the stone or whatever, that you're taking 3 seconds to go through that movement, or you're just talking like 3 seconds and then flip over to the next one?
I'm saying, good question. When you're on a belt sharpener, it's 3 seconds on the same pass through.
Okay.
So, and then you might do that pass, 3 or 4 times, depending on how dull your knife is. It's similar on the diamond abrasive. Really, I probably don't spend 3 seconds on a 3-inch knife, but it's a good thing to think about and slow yourself down. And if you feel like you're going slow, you're probably doing it right.
I like that, man, because I'm always wondering in my head when I'm sharpening, like, man, am I doing this too quick? Am I doing it too slow? Like, you always wonder, and then like sometimes you might have, after you've done it, sometimes like, okay, got a good edge. Other times like, crap, I need to go back and do this again. So, well, man, I like this. Got some really good tips for the listeners out there. I think a lot of the guys that are going to be chasing after elk, whitetail, and they're not going to have power for a sharpener, I think they're going to really appreciate these tips, man. So again, just can't thank you enough for hopping on the HuntStand podcast for Field Note Fridays today.
Thanks for having me, and I hope this was helpful information for everyone.
Absolutely, man. All right, y'all, there you go. Hopefully y'all were able to learn a little bit from Josh today, and hopefully you'll be able to go home and get a sharper edge on those knives of yours. And if not, make sure to reach out to us at podcast@huntstand.com. We could get you in touch with Josh if you got questions yourself. And again, y'all, if you got things that you want us to talk about or questions yourself, email me, podcast@huntstand.com. I'd love to hear your questions. Who knows, maybe we'll do a Q&A podcast coming up. But again, y'all, we just want to thank y'all for tuning into the HuntStand podcast and Field Note Fridays powered by Bowtech. We'll see you on the next one.